Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wiggles Enthusiast Podcast. Testing 1, 2, 3. I'm Tyler.
I'm Sam.
I'm Jake.
And we have a brand new host with us today. Everybody say hello to Johnny.
Yeah,
Hi, Johnny.
What up, Johnny?
Hello.
Oh, boy. We have a treat for you today, ladies and gentlemen. We have today Wiggly Dancer, former Wiggly Dancer, Australian Idol Top 15. Pretty impressive stuff, guys. We got Chris Luder with us today. How's it going, Chris?
Whoop, 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 whoop. I'm good, fellas. How are you? How is everyone?
Excellent.
Good. Excited.
It's good to be here.
All right. So right off the bat, so where does music and performing begin for you? What was sort of the spark that got you into it in the first place?
Oof. It's a funny one because I kind of fell into it, but I guess my mom was like to blame for the music, I think. Like music was always big in our house. So like there was a lot of music always around. I played a lot of sports growing up, but there was always music on the way to the sports. So it was like, we'd be on the way to a swimming carnival, but mom would be blasting the Queen album or like something else super random. Like she used to love like Fan of the Opera and stuff like that too. So I somehow know all that stuff in the back of my mind. But then like later in school, I was kind of a big into hip hop and R&B. Like that was my thing in high school. Like, I don't know if you guys are too young to know, but like I used to dress up in like cross colors clothes and like, I just thought I was like it. And, and then like later in high school, there was actually there was a girl that I liked who was in the school musical. And so I kind of went into the school musical, like to try and kind of be around her more. And then I was in the chorus and somebody wanted to replace the lead guy who was in the lead of, I think it was Anything Goes, the musical. And they were like, oh, you can do it. And the director put me into that role. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, like I'm just here to be in the background. And he kind of was like, no, you've got a great voice and you can do it. And I'm going to put you in the role and you're going to do it. That's it. And I guess it's one of those situations where somebody just kind of, if somebody believes that you can do it when you're younger and they tell you, then you kind of just go, okay, I guess so. And so I just did it. And I guess from there, but I had a background in R&B and hip hop. And that's kind of what I grew up on, was all that kind of urban music, I guess, through the 90s. I loved all that stuff and still do.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to do it sometimes.
I tell my students that too. You can talk about it a lot, but sometimes you just got to drop the dime and kind of be ready to make a big failure.
Fair enough.
Or take a big win.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it, but we were also wondering, do you have any like other early memories of dancing and singing, maybe some of your first jobs or some of your first gigs that you got?
Dancing was actually, look, here's the thing as well, and I should have mentioned this before. I was actually into like dance before I was into singing, like as a real thing, like because I was hugely into like Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, like a lot of people from that era. And obviously being so much just loving urban and like R&B culture and stuff like that. Because I was from the sticks, like I'm from Queensland, like up and down the Queensland coast, but the country. So like you got to understand this is pre-internet. So it's like the information that I'd be getting would be from like, Word Up magazine from the news agency or whatever. And I'd have to guess whether I was going to like it or not, and then order it from the music store and wait a month to get it. And then just hope that I was going to like it. So I grew up and also I had a lot of like Filipino and Malaysian friends at early high school who were really into that kind of culture as well. So I kind of tapped into that. Like they'd have karaoke at their house with their parents and stuff. And they were always like making up like hip hop routines and stuff. And I would just kind of tag along to that. But then I kind of got into music through that as well. And then realized, somebody told me, but you can sing. And I'm like, can I? First, you want to know my first job?
Yeah, that's right.
I think it was working at a theater restaurant. Maybe I worked at a theater restaurant called Bawdy Bills. I think it was called Bawdy Bills. Is that right? Yeah, it was in Liverpool and Sydney. I think I got paid like $100 cash for like a Sunday night show or something. I feel like I'm making this up now. I feel like it's like a made up memory, but it was like, oh, that's right. It was a copy of like, I don't know if you remember the theater restaurants, Dirty Dicks, but it was the same. Bawdy Bills. It was the same thing, kind of, but worse. I dressed up as a gorilla on the door. I dressed up as like the Grim Reaper. You know how they do like jump scare people?
Yeah.
Like on the
Oh,
way
yeah,
into
yeah.
restaurants. It was like
Yeah.
it was part of that stuff. Like I had to dress up in the outfit, and then people would come in through the door, and then I'd scare them as they came in. And then like later on, I was like, I don't know what I was seeing in the show, something cheesy. I can't remember.
That's amazing.
Cool.
So you touched on it a little bit. I gotta ask, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song? I'm a big MJ guy. We talked PYT.
Yeah,
I'm kind of same area. Mine's Baby Be Mine, same album.
love that as well. It probably for me it goes PYT and then Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, depending on how much I've had to sing it in the year.
That's fair enough.
So you kind of already touched on this as well, but what were your greatest influences in singing and dance?
Okay. Singing, there was heaps. Like it was obviously very much on that kind of 90s R&B side of things, but there was some that really came through, and still I listened to, like Boyz II Men. I was huge on. Obviously Wanye from Boyz II Men. Brandy, I was a really big fan of Brandy. Dance was like Janet and Michael, but Janet kind of became bigger for me later, like through if you ask anyone from that era, like what's the kind of penultimate video clip for them, it's usually If by Janet Jackson. Probably, I think Ben would probably tell you the same thing, and Christy and all those people, because it was just that one that you watch and you were like, what is going on? I need to learn that. Like, that's so cool. It's so different. But earlier on, it was definitely Michael, for sure. And then, but that would probably be the main influences.
So to completely move away from your beginnings, well, not completely, but where did the opportunity to be involved with the Wiggles arise for you, and what was the audition like?
I was thinking about this again recently. It's so funny because I was talking to one of my students about, I guess it's like sometimes some of the good things about being young and kind of a bit naive and not knowing everything is that I went into this audition completely not knowing who the Wiggles were, with no prior knowledge of anything to do with them. So I kind of walked in and I was a bit like cocky, I guess, like thinking back, like I would have probably been, let me think, maybe 19. I would have been 19 because it was the end of my year at Brent Street, or towards the end. And I just remember walking in and people were like kind of taking it really seriously. And I kind of was just going in and helping people learn the songs on the piano. I think they gave us, I can't remember what song it was. And Leanne Halloran was there. And the dancing was taken very, very seriously. That's all I remember, is that it was like, you had to do it very specifically. And I was like, what is this? What am I auditioning for here? But I legitimately went to this audition from the paper. Like that's how kind of old school this is. It was in like one of the major kind of Sydney papers, and I just rolled along, and I think they just kept cutting people. I can't remember, but there was definitely a dancing element and then a singing element, which all the dancers were obviously terrified for. But we found out later that it was kind of because they were making the Dorothy show, like the D show, which all made sense later on. And that was like a whole 2-week boot camp, I think, from memory, where they brought in like child psychologists, and we learned all about like how to speak to kids, like what's the best way to present. And we learned a bunch of child psychology as well. And they had like 2 casts that were running at the same time. And we were kind of jumping in and out of roles to see they were seeing who would fit what roles the best. By the way, I make a terrible Captain Feathersword. I'm just going to throw that out there.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, you touched on it a little bit, but go a little more in depth with what the training for the Dorothy show is like. Because you mentioned child psychologists. Were those like the people from Macquarie University that sort of built the Wiggles up to who they ended up being? Or
it was a lady, and I can't remember her name, but she, I think, was one of their lecturers.
Was it Kathleen Warren by chance?
Dude, you're pushing it now. I don't remember them, but the most I remember I remember being terrified, like just in general, because I was like, just wanted to do really well. And then I also remember that Anthony had a bunch of dogs that he would bring into rehearsals. Like there were like 5 kind of, what's that breed of dog that he used to have? Is it Jack Russell Terriers?
Yeah.
I think so.
And they used to come in and just run
Mini
riot.
Fox, I think.
That's it, mini Foxies. There we go. And they used to come in and just run riot Like he'd come in, and they'd be running everywhere at the start of the day, and you kind of have to corral them. And then also I think about this now, and I'm like, wow, like no wonder I was kind of scared, because they had I think we were the second cast that they cast for this show. So there was Sam was in the first round of this, along with Rebecca Osborne and those people. But towards the end, they brought those guys in to watch us do the show, and we were just petrified, because I guess they were all kind of standing there like, who are these guys who are about to take our roles? Like, let's check it out. And they were staunching us, and it was quite funny in retrospect, because we kind of ended up just getting inserted and all working together anyway on different tours.
Yeah, I would say bringing dogs to a rehearsal is a very Anthony Field thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. I completely agree.
Honestly, those dogs were kind of famous for a little bit, like on like the early message boards and stuff. They used to make like these fan pages for like, was it Fergus was one of them?
Yeah.
Fergus.
That rings a
Yeah.
bell.
Pasqua.
Absolutely.
Fergus and Pasqua. Yeah, it was those two.
Pasquale?
Pasqua, I think. Yeah.
Pasqua.
So you kind of, again, touched on this a little bit. You seem to be preempting all our questions, but that's good.
Sorry, dude. Sorry. I
No,
will
it's okay.
expand as much as you want me to. Trust
No,
me.
it's,
Like
it's
you
great.
just-
It's
you're,
good.
you're triggering memories that I don't remember I had. It's like some kind of fever dream.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
Fantastic. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting how you were like kind of there for the inception of the Dorothy the Dinosaur show. So we're wondering, what was it like touring with kind of the very early versions of that show, and do you have any favorite memories of it?
That was so fun. And it was so fun for me because it was one of my first jobs, like proper jobs in the industry. I actually didn't graduate from Brent Street, which is a performing arts school, because I got into the Wiggles. So they said that I either had to choose between like graduating, or as in I wouldn't do the rehearsal period, which was 2 weeks, because it bit into the end of my, I guess, time at Brent Street. And I was like, why would I do that? I came here to get a job in the industry. So why would I not take this job that I've just auditioned for? But anyway, I did. They gave me an empty envelope at the end of the year, which didn't have my certificate in it, which I thought was mad shady. And I still laugh, because you can see on the video of me doing it. I open it and I'm like, there's nothing in here. The first tour that we did was a 6-week tour of Western Australia, and it went to all these places which I now still have not been back to, but they're amazing. So we kind of went from Perth all the way down the coast through all these tiny little towns, and then kind of drove all the way back up to Broome, and then we came back down again. So it was a huge tour. If anyone knows anything about Geography of Australia, I'm pretty rusty, but I learned a lot from that tour just from going around. And we had the good memories, I guess. There's a lot of them, but we kind of had a Tarago, which is just like a big minivan, I guess. And we were just all traveling around in this Tarago, going to all these towns. There's a lot of memories. I think I've talked to you, Tyler, about a few of them.
Yeah, you've shared a lot of random stuff. Like we just said, like other things. Like you told me that this not that long ago. You told me about, I think it was the first you were on tour with the Dorothy Dinosaur show.
Yes.
And you pulled over because you were
I was just about to tell that story. Yeah.
Do you want to tell it? You would tell
oh man, it's quite funny because it does bring up certain times and a place. I guess music gives us like a time and a place, right? So we were kind of, because it definitely puts you in that year. So it would have been, God, this makes me sound super old, but it would have been 99, I guess, sometime in 99, I think. Yeah, that would be right. And we were kind of driving in the middle of nowhere. I wouldn't even remember where it was, but there's lots of long stretches of road in WA where you just see kind of flat, maybe some flowers, depending on what season it is, but it's just like flat nothingness, but it's definitely wide open spaces vibe. But we were just traveling on with the radio on, and everyone was kind of just like doing their thing. And then this song came on, and we were all kind of like, what is this song? Turn this song up. What is this song? And they turned this song up, and we literally all kind of started jamming along to this song in the car, because you've got to understand this is pre-internet. So it's like we didn't really have any knowledge of what the song was, or hadn't heard it. It was the first time everyone had heard it. And we legitimately pulled the car over to the side of the road. I wasn't driving though, because I was too young, I think. So it would have been Graham Hickey probably. And all got out of the car and started dancing around the car to this song. And the song was Hit Me Baby One More Time, which now seems embarrassing. But at the time it was like,
it's a great song.
It's a bop, right? But we didn't have any kind of prior knowledge of this. Like, so when I heard it, I originally just thought it was like some young R&B singer. But then obviously I got the visual of it from a video later on, and I was like, oh, right. Okay. But yeah, we legitimately cranked it to 11 and got out. And then we were trying to find it at some, tiny small town, trying to buy the CD single somewhere. Other memories from that tour, Graham Hickey collected hat pins from everywhere we went. So he used to, like, when we get it, did you say Esperance? I think that's how you say it. Anyway, or maybe I'm saying that wrong. But there were every tiny little place we went to, he just had hat pins from everywhere around. And we also, I can't for the life of me remember where it was. Rebecca Osborne could probably has a better memory on this one, but we definitely pulled up to stay somewhere. We were in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And they put us in this accommodation that was kind of attached to a pub-ish, like a bar, but it was like a topless bar. It's like this motel attached to a topless bar, and when we like rang the office and told them, they were like, absolutely not, you're not staying there. and I think Show Travel, who was the ones who organized all the like the accommodation and everything here, they're still around actually. I think they kind of got a bit of a talking to perhaps from the Wiggles office, and they had to move us somewhere else. But yeah.
That's fantastic.
So about the Dorothy the Dinosaur show, what was it like working with the Wiggle puppets?
Those things still haunt my dreams.
Yeah,
You should see what they look like now. It's not pretty.
Oh my god.
You should have seen what they looked like then. I don't think it was any better, perhaps. I mean, unless you've got a photo to show me that I could compare it to with the
I can
mental
grab,
imagery I've
grab my
got.
phone. The only one I think they have now is Jeff, because all of the others disintegrated, and
Oh,
Jeff's
that's so
eyes.
scary.
Look,
Jeff's
guys,
Jeff's eyes are like yellow, like Michael Jackson the Thriller music video. Like they're just like yellow now, and it is like half his face is like falling off, and
Oh,
they're
it's so
they're
scary.
making TikToks with it. They've been making TikToks with it.
Yeah, no. I'm trying
Look.
to find a picture of it.
we used to joke about this even back then, because like the kids used to be terrified. We because we're standing, you got to understand, like we were standing on stage with our hands up these puppets of the Wiggles, like just standing there talking to them like this, and I was like, is that not scary? I feel like that's scary.
Wait, the puppets had like dialogue in the show. They weren't just like singing. They were like,
Oh, now you're digging up some memories here. I can't remember for the life of me what song it was that we did with the Wiggle puppets, but their eyes used to go different ways. Like they some of them, the eyes just didn't stay. So I'd be sitting there and we'd be like, you'd see a terrified child in the front row and I'd look at it and you'd go, oh, the eyes have gone funny again. So they kind of end up with their eyes going different directions. So they were a constant problem, actually, the Wiggle puppets. Like you'd see them lying in the box, and we used to think they'd get up and walk around at nighttime.
that's a horrifying. That I'm imagining that in my head. That's a terrifying image in my head.
it is.
Yeah, Graham Hickey was really funny, and I think it was him and I that had to do it at some. Oh no, Graham was Captain Feathersword for that tour, I think. I can't remember. The Wiggle puppets. There's still one around.
Yeah.
One.
So
Jeff.
a funny story that I think Greg tells in this book or something like that. He was looking through his attic, his like very dark attic, just kind of looking for something. He turns his flashlight over to this disintegrated Greg Wiggle puppet with like its kind of jaw detached from its head, and he just looks at it, and he just is like momentarily petrified at the sight of this Greg Wiggle puppet. Just terrifying.
I do not blame him. There was definitely some moments with those puppets. I think because they were in a suitcase, so you'd open the suitcase and there'd be like a leg kind of hanging out the side, and then they'd be kind of laying on top of each other, and it was pretty weird.
Especially for touring's
Scary.
sake. I'm surprised they didn't go for like a Muppet style sort of thing. They kept the scary puppets.
When I
You
think
know?
about all the stuff that we had to do now, I'm just like, wow. Like I think I've said to you, Tyler, like I used to have to do Henry's voice off stage. So, you know, like on a microphone. And so Henry would have to kind of do whatever we said, because that's the rules. So, you know, if I said Henry loves to spin 100 times, then we're going to do 100 spins and that's it. And so whoever was kind of friends with Henry, let's say, would kind of, you know, get stuck with whatever we told them to do.
Man, I'm sure you guys were evil at various points on the tour to whoever was in Henry.
It was pretty wild, but definitely fun.
Yeah.
All right. What's this next question? Who asked this one? Johnny, it's all you, dog.
Oh gosh, I was looking for the photo of the Jeff puppet now.
He's on a rabbit hole looking
Yeah.
at
No, you gotta find that TikTok of Anthony and Jeff like spinning it around the world by Daft Punk.
Yeah, no,
Wait,
that
a
was,
real-
that was very
wait,
scary.
stop. Is that a real thing that exists in like
That's
in
a
this
real thing.
universe?
Yes.
If you go to Anthony's TikTok, it's hard to miss, I would imagine.
But
I like that
it's
this is where the
somewhere.
podcast is headed. This is
Look,
a really
yeah.
good interview.
You got to go where the energy is. Oh yeah, I found it. Okay,
the video. It gives you
wow.
a bad feeling when you watch it.
When is this from? Is this recent?
Yeah, it's
Recent,
very
very recent,
Yeah.
because
Like
they've had the OGs around again, so it's like they've just been doing stuff.
Actually, Greg was recently over at Sydney Props. I didn't actually see him, but I knew he was there in passing. I heard him singing, recording in one of the studios. I don't know what project it was from, but
Really?
yeah. Because I was over there doing some work, and he was upstairs in Studio One, I think, working on something, some project. Do you guys know what he's working on at the moment, or?
Not
It-
particularly. He's
I don't-
been doing a lot of like advocating for
Yeah.
people who are survivors of cardiac arrest because of what happened to him
Of course.
not too long ago.
Whoa! I'm just looking at this footage of that wiggle puppet is extremely scary. Wowzers! Yeah, that's super scary. It actually looks in better condition than I remember.
I mean, that
It
says
was
a lot.
like-
It's been a while.
Yeah, but back to my question.
Sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, no, it went on a tangent. Aside from being a host in the Dorothy show, what other characters did you get to play for outside shows of the
Wags.
Wiggles?
Well, I should say I was friends with Wags.
Yeah.
The training is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Tyler about this. I believe I may have this wrong, but I like one of my first like jobs with the Wiggles, like as opposed to doing the Dorothy show, which I did for ages, and concurrently with, you know, doing stuff for the actual Wiggles as well. I think I did Wags for like some Christmas Carrie Ann Kenley morning show, maybe like a Christmas medley or something. And if I wasn't in Wags for that, I was probably like an elf or something, or a reindeer maybe. Reindeer, but maybe.
Yeah.
That would have been like the year prior to you doing the Wiggly Party big show then?
Yeah, that was probably like my like testing out to see if I'm not a psycho to work with the Wiggles.
Right, yeah. All right, so I guess I don't know how much this means to you, but for us nerds, that's pretty cool. That means I was probably to promote the You'll Be Wiggling Christmas show, which is a pretty awesome tour. So
Right. Yeah, I can't find footage of that because you reminded me of it a little while ago, and I was looking for the appearance that it was. It was like doing the OG, like the Christmas medley with Go Santa Go and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And all I can remember is that Troy Cassar-Daly was on with us. So I don't know if that helps anyone find the lost footage or if it exists, but he was.
Anyone listening, we need to start the search.
Yeah, that's it. See if you can find it. But I remember meeting Troy Cassar-Daly and we were like super like excited. I'm thinking here see these things, I can't find the sequence of these things in my head necessarily, but there was definitely like somewhere in there, and maybe this was before I did Big Show, I had to fill in for Greg, I think, for a show in was that Anthony? There was some show here which was out possibly at Rudy Hill RSL. And I had to fill in for one of the boys. I can't remember for what reason, but somebody was sick or something had gone down. So that was definitely in there somewhere too. And then the big show, you guys could probably put this in a better timeline than me, but I think Wiggly Safari was before the big show tour that I did, the filming for it with Steve Irwin. I think that kind of that year all becomes a bit of a blur.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe I think the big show was December 2001. And I think Wiggly Safari was filmed January 2002.
Okay.
So really close together.
I believe that. That's why it doesn't necessarily add up in my brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's definitely Tyler, I think you found footage of, was it Carols on the Domain?
Yeah. I sent you that.
Which I'd forgotten about, and I sent to my mother the other day, and I was like, "Oh, is that actually me? I don't know if that's me." She goes, "Yes, I've got it on video still." So there's definitely footage of, that was a reindeer. That was reindeer, wasn't it, for Carols on the Domain?
I think so. I think you're one of the reindeer.
Yeah.
So we touched on this a little bit, but after a long time of touring in the Dorothy show, you eventually got to go on stage in the big show in 2001, which was Wiggly Party Live in Concert. And do you remember like what the rehearsals for that were like in comparison to the Dorothy the Dinosaur show? And like, what was that like going from like the Dorothy shows and like these places really in the middle of nowhere to playing arenas, essentially?
Is that what it was called? Wiggly Party?
Yeah, it was called Wiggly Party Live in Concert.
That I have no recollection. I feel like Gandalf, like, when he's like, I have no recollection of this place. How was the rehearsals for that? It was awesome. It was actually awesome, dude, because I guess the cool thing about, and I might have touched on this with you before kind of in passing, but a lot of us were friends outside of the Wiggles and because of the Wiggles as well. Like Ben and I were in the same audition. So like when we actually auditioned together, like Ben was helping me out with the routine and I was helping out with the singing part of it. And we became really good mates. Ben was like 15 or 16 at that audition. He was so young, still at high school. And like Christy, I was friends with, but she was already touring with the Wiggles as well. And then Larissa as well. Like all these people had done Dorothy shows, and so we'd kind of come in and out and had a lot of contact with each other. Corinne as well, and Reem, Hanwell, all the names are coming back. All the Leannes.
All of them.
Yeah. So by the time I'd come into the show, I'd been in contact with a lot of these people. But it was so exciting because it was like obviously the big show and it was my first one. So, all the costumes and then, all the crazy ideas, which all ended up being like, you think about them now, like I think about being on skates and doing the owl. I'm like, really? Did that actually happen? And the poor people who couldn't skate, like I could skate, but like I'm thinking about people like Ben who legitimately had never skated in their lives.
Dude, we were watching Do the Owl before you joined, and there's this moment where like, how like sort of like on the stage there's like just a big Wiggles logo just across the stage. Ben just does this spin and just like tears part of the stage out, like tears the cover off of it,
like in skates or just
no, he wasn't in skates, he just like spun really hard and like ripped a piece of the stage off.
Ben's turns are next level. He could always like chuck a triple turn and no matter what and stay upright. So that's not surprising. But yeah, the big show was really exciting and it was really fun too because we were all kind of like, there were numbers that we really enjoyed as well. Like, because it was like a full-blown workout and stuff used to change all the time just because of Anthony. So, he's the ringleader. And he was so quick on his feet, and so
he still is like that.
Yeah, he's just like a great MC, and he was always.
He's the best.
Out of I think I said this to you as well. Like out of the people it was much harder to replace Anthony than it was to replace Greg, because he runs he used to run the show in terms of like where things were going and the dialogue between, and he's the hype guy, right?
Right.
And he's just so smart and so clever in terms of like and he's naturally funny too, which I think was hard to capture for somebody when I was younger. I was like just trying to get everything right, you know.
Right.
I love doing hoop-de-doo actually. That was probably the funnest number for us in the big show. And it was like the hardest one too, because we'd be completely gone by the end of it in terms of just like unable to breathe.
I think you guys were the first group of dancers that got to wear the iconic red coats. So you're the OG, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? We actually really liked those coats as well. Like we were like that was one of the outfits we were like, yes, we like these outfits. You know, whereas when we had to get into the owl jumpsuits, it was always a bit dicey. Those disco close to the skin bell bottoms.
Yo, Jake, I think you should show him the program.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. So
he's got it.
I have a Wiggly Party tour program, and it
how did you get your hands on that?
It was on eBay for.
Hey.
So
dude, that's a good catch. I definitely
wanted.
have one of those around somewhere, but I don't know where it would be.
This is you right there.
Oh wow, I remember hating that photo. I haven't seen that in like, wow, that'd be like 20 years. That's crazy. Is that Andrew McCourt underneath?
Yeah, it is. Here, I can show you the whole.
Who else is on that page? Is that Ben? Is Ben got his mouth open for the photo?
Andrew.
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah,
you guys all know the famous Ben pose, right? You got to do the smile with the mouth open.
Yeah.
You got to do that one.
Oh, that's right.
And then this side's got like Ryan.
Is that Leanne? Oh, Ryan was on that tour too. That's right. Who's up top?
Paul Paddock.
Oh, it's Paul Paddock.
Oh, Paddy. Okay.
Yeah.
Paddy's hilarious. My goodness.
And then there's some other photos too.
The best stuff's in the back.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm getting to. So we got these emu outfits.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that's.
I mean, I can tell you a story about those. That was because they were a carryover from Wiggly Safari, right?
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
I was not a happy camper that day when we filmed that because it was really, really hot. And I think I almost had a mini tantrum out in the middle of nowhere. Almost. But I remember it being super hot and something about the costume not really fitting, like it was just falling off or something. And we had feet as well, right? Are there feet? Like little feet?
That would have been the song Old Man Emu. That would have been, right?
Yeah. I remember Ben kind of taking over that one because I was like, I felt like I was going to pass out at Australia Zoo.
Yeah, there's some more of the costumes too in here.
The dinosaurs? Is that what you're going to show off? You're gonna expose me in my dinosaur costume?
Well, there's a few in here, so I can't really show it well.
We're just gonna get a close up of him in that blue dinosaur. He's not having it.
That was my blue steel. What are you guys talking about? I'm killing it. Look, I'm giving full like Plethosaurus realness. What are you talking about?
No, honestly, your face matches the dinosaur's face on top.
I remember doing that photo shoot though, and because I think it was the first time we'd seen the outfits, maybe, and we were kind of like they were handing them out. Is Larissa on that page as well? Because she had one of the better costumes. I think I can't remember. I definitely remember those. Oh yeah, Ben's was hilarious. I definitely remember it was like because we had to come on stage. What song would that have been for? I don't necessarily remember.
Caveland.
Yeah, but I remember that like having to like walk with these sticks for hands potentially or something, bent over. It wasn't super comfortable.
I was gonna say it doesn't sound great.
But I think I threw this to you last time, Tyler. Was there something to do with a chicken or a duck in that show?
5 little ducks, yeah. I mean, that's what you're getting at, yeah.
Because one of my, and I mean, I've got a pretty cruel sense of humor sometimes, but like, because Ben hated that costume, and it used to give me some kind of weird like pleasure just knowing that he had to come out in that costume and kind of do what's the song? Somebody give me some of that song. I can't remember.
You guys gonna make me sing it? Is that
Come
what's
on
happening
now.
right now?
Come on
It's
now.
like, 5 little ducks went out one day.
Yes, that's the one.
Over the hills and
Yeah.
far away. It's a classic.
But there was some. I've got some memory in there of him coming down the slide
Oh,
in that
really?
Oh.
costume, which he was not a fan of.
Oh, that's cool.
And that slide was really cool, by the way. I know Wags had to come down that slide as well if you like during the show.
Yeah. There's this video of like that would have been Andrew McCourt and being friends
Yeah.
with Wags. That
Yep,
show,
yep,
right?
yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, he like it's Shake Your Hips with Wags the dog. He comes down, sort of runs to the front, does this like jump split, and then goes into the song.
That sounds like Andrew.
Yeah.
Actually, fun fact: Andrew, I think, broke his leg when we were filming Wiggly Safari,
Ooh,
Really?
poolside. So like we were hanging out back at the accommodation, and something happened at the pool, and he broke his leg or ankle or something like that. And yeah, I remember there being some kind of drama because we weren't really in a built-up place. We were all staying really close to Australia Zoo, or maybe like right on property. I can't remember. Yeah, well, I think Andrew's over in the States, isn't he? He works with puppets, or used to.
he might be. I don't know.
I think last time I saw him, I was visiting in LA and he was living in LA. This is like going back pre-COVID, but Andrew worked as like a puppeteer or like a consult for something to do with puppeteering.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Cool. So just going back to the Wiggly Party show for a second, like hearing you talk about it and also seeing like the few songs that we've seen footage of, like Do the Owl's one of them, and the other one is Queen of the Roses. It definitely,
Oh God, yeah,
the
that's right.
Dorothy song. Yeah, it definitely seems like there was a great chemistry between you and the dancers, and it seems like it was a great tour to be a part of.
I definitely remember
Good
Queen of
song.
the Roses.
Okay, I'm
We had to go out into the audience to
Yeah.
collect the roses, but I haven't thought
Yeah.
about that since. But the amount of roses that they used to get at every show was crazy.
Yeah.
Doing a dance.
A dance,
Okay.
if you're from
Here
Adelaide.
we go.
We're doing a dance, we're doing a dance, we're doing a Christmas dance. Everybody's dancing cause it's Christmas Day. We love to dance this way. We're doing a dance, we're doing a dance, we're doing a Christmas dance. Everybody's dancing cause it's Christmas Day. We're doing a Christmas dance.
This one I don't remember. Was it part of a medley?
It was like right after Player Guitar with Murray, I'm pretty sure.
I was going
It
to
was
say, so
like-
the only thing I can think of was Play Guitar with Murray, because I remember we had like little solos in that as like dancers. So there was like everybody standing around and we kind of ran into the middle and did like our little 8 counts of whatever we thought was cool. I think that was part of that. Was that right after that, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like from what we can tell from pictures, they're like basically right after the other, essentially. So yeah, I don't know.
It rings a bell, but I can't remember the choreography in my head. Like it doesn't spring into my mind.
Right. I'll send you a picture later. I'll send
Yeah,
you a
yeah,
picture,
for
see if
sure.
we can-
For sure. You never know what's going to spark a deep memory. I feel like the ones that stick in my mind are the ones that I kind of like have memories of being on stage with everybody for like of the interaction between people, like Hoopty Doo, and I just remember having to and having really sore thighs afterwards, like from slapping the absolute hell out of my thighs.
Yeah.
Because
Right,
I was right next to Larissa, I think, and we'd kind of just egg each other on. Larissa was a great dancer, and probably still is, I would say.
All right. Then this one's a question that I'm looking forward to hear more about right here.
So in the Wiggly Party tour, there was an a cappella rendition of Silent Night performed by yourself, Greg, Larissa, Ryan, Andrew, and Naomi.
Woo! You got the photo as well.
Sam pulled out the photo. So do you
Wow.
have any
But-
memories of putting that together, like that arrangement?
Well, we should share some historical context though. Sam's mom took this photo.
Dude, that's super cool. I
Yeah.
was wondering where this photo came from, because I also thought I mean, sometimes memories get mixed up in your head, right? But I thought we did this at Carols on the Domain, but footage says otherwise. So was this in the big show, was it?
Yeah, the Wiggly Party, December.
Right.
show.
Okay. And that's right. Nate was in this show as well. Naomi. Okay. I remember the rehearsals for this where I think Anthony's house. Like we got together and Anthony wanted to I think put me in charge of arranging this. Like harmonies and stuff. It was probably the first time I'd ever done something like that, potentially. Like properly, I guess, in a professional sense. Like obviously I'd sung harmonies and stuff at other gigs and things I'd done, but actually arranging parts for somebody and doing it. Was that a cappella, was it?
As far as we know, it looks like
yeah,
it.
It looks like it. But
No, surely not. Maybe it was. This show didn't have a live band, did it?
no.
No, not this one. No.
It was the one after, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was.
Yeah.
That's when they started having
One
the
or
live
two.
band, right? With
That
Rex Go.
was. Yeah, that was 2003, I think.
Later on. Okay, cool. So maybe it was maybe Murray played chords or something. I'm not sure. Well, it could have been a cappella. I'm not sure. But I remember going to Anthony's house, which I think was, I can't even remember where it was at the time. But yeah, just sitting in someone's lounge room at a keyboard and kind of with everybody there and working out parts for everyone. I was super excited, and it was nice to get to have a sing.
Yeah, I never thought about that because we only see you 6 in this picture, but I guess I never really thought about the fact that either Murray or Jeff I could have been backing you guys up too.
Yeah, because a bit of that used to go on stage too. You remember, part of what made the shows always great and probably is still in a lot of the shows is there was a lot of spontaneity, and that's the stuff that the parents and everybody could enjoy as well, because the shows were never exactly the same. Never ever. Anthony could go on a tangent at the drop of a hat and did, and it would keep everybody, including the other guys, on their feet. We could. And the choreography used to evolve on stage too, just with whatever people were kind of, was making us have a giggle or, whatever was kind of working. So things would evolve on the tour ever so slightly, where people stood and what the beginnings of the songs were, what the cues would be. So you kind of needed to be on your toes, which was part of the fun of it, I think.
Right.
All right. So my next question is Dorothy show or Big Show, which was your favorite song to perform?
Ooh. Has anyone got a list of the songs in the D2D show?
Well,
I always love the opening. I always love the opening song. Opening song was a banger, but that wasn't my favorite. I love Move Your Arms with Henry. I used to love singing that, and the choreography is jammed into my brain as a result. Still to this day. And the most tiring one was one of the Wags ones. I just remember what would it have been? Dancing with Wags?
Shake your hips with Wags.
No,
Was
that one. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It was just non-stop the whole time, OG Leanne Halloran choreography, that just went, and didn't matter if you had to sing, you just had to sing and do all the choreography. And there were hands that had to be exactly a certain way. So you, in your brain, you go make sure they're exactly right. But I used to love I enjoyed singing a lot of that because I could kind of make my voice sound pretty close to Greg's. I guess we have probably similar, probably both baritones. So, which is, I think, part of the reason why I ended up filling in for Greg originally, was because I could kind of imitate Greg in a way, vocally. But I loved, the opening is also jammed in my brain. The whole opening. And we used to wear face mics for that stuff, which I think back now, and that's hilarious as well. I had a little NSYNC Justin Timberlake mics on.
Yeah, I guess so. This question kind of touched on that, but the next question was, what is your favorite Wiggle song of all time? But there's an add-on to it, and could you sing a little bit of it for us? Because the thing about our viewers here is a lot of people probably know you as just like Wiggly Dancer. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't know how great of a singer you are. So if you could enlighten the people,
I mean,
by chance,
I'll answer the other question first. I think somebody said, what was my favorite song from the Big Show, right?
yeah, that
It
works.
was Hoop De Doo. It was
Yeah,
Hoop De Doo. Well, without looking through a list of songs, because some of those might escape me. But did we do the Christmas medley as well? Was that in the Big Show as well?
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
I always loved doing the Christmas because it was like a marathon. Like you had to get through it because it was like nonstop. There were lots of position changes, so you got different opportunities to kind of connect with everybody on stage. And I guess that's what was fun too, because you're friends with pretty much everybody on stage. Like you're kind of getting to have little moments, and I think that's what made it great as well. It's because everyone was kind of fun, and we were legitimately having fun on stage, and backstage as well. And my favorite Wiggle song of all time. We also used to love doing Rockabye Your Bear. Like that was really fun too, because that's like the full kind of probably is it the most popular song of all time for the Wiggles?
It's like the
up there.
Wiggles song, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to sit down on the front of the stage, and do
that's
it.
cool.
I think it was probably our only rest maybe in the show, where it was like we would sit down on the front of the stage and all the kids would come forward, and we would get to do the song with everybody. I think maybe the girl host and I sang it together, like octaves apart. Maybe that was the thing for the poor girls. I remember in the D show, everything was so high because it was like an octave above Greg. So all the girls had to have super high ranges and would be completely up the everybody get la 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 up there, right? So whereas I'm down the bottom, then you turn around, I'm down the bottom. So it's like
Right.
I was chilling, but the poor girls were having to sing right up top of their registers.
Right.
And that's all the singing you're gonna get out of me today.
Oh, that's fair enough. Oh, that's so not cool. I had to sing twice, but the singer's not even gonna sing.
I was leaving. I felt that nice gap left for me to perform for you, but
That was good.
I
Everybody, 3 seconds of Rockabye Bear by Chris Luder, everybody. Woo!
I actually love that song though. It's a banger.
We were just wondering, did you have a funny or unexpected memory of something that happened on stage, either a big show or a Dorothy show, or even a regional show where you were filling in or something?
Yes, there's a lot. There was something that we used to do, Beck Osborne and I can't remember what tour. There was a tour that we did of the north coast of New South Wales, I think, and it may have gone from maybe from Twin Towns down to Sydney. I can't remember exactly, but oh no, maybe it was Queensland. Anyway, there would be the memories of the places that we would go that would be associated with kind of funny stuff that had happened. And Proserpine, there was something to do with we got absolutely eaten alive by mosquitoes up there. But there was also somewhere where, and I can't remember where it is, she'd be the one that could remember, but we were driving and we got lost somewhere in this town. We're trying to find the accommodation in the Tarago, and everyone's in the Tarago, and we were deliriously tired. And I told her to take this turn, and we went down this street, and all of a sudden we were in a field with all these geese, in front, hundreds of geese in front of us. And she's screaming for some reason, and I'm just slow down. And there's these geese kind of parting the seas of these geese in the middle of this field, and we honestly had no idea where we were. But there's so many good memories. But there was definitely some funny stuff that used to happen backstage as well, and definitely on stage between the characters, and just some in jokes with Captain Feathersword and stuff that used to happen in the script as well. I mean, there's some funny memories from doing shows in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And there was this one kid in the middle of nowhere in Western Australia on that Western Australia tour that just couldn't stand the sight of Captain Feathersword, which was Graham Hickey at the time. And every time he used to come on stage, the kid would scream like he was getting murdered. And so every time he'd come on stage, he'd scream at him to get off stage. like he wasn't the real Captain Feathersword or something. I don't know, but it was sending me and the other host so badly, because he was being so loud. This kid just couldn't stand him, and Graham, being Graham, just kept coming on and kind of peeking around the corners, and you just hear him kind of get real vocal.
I might be getting this wrong, but were you Wags at a shopping center show and you like fell off the back of a stage at one point? Is that a thing that happened?
I was telling that story the other day to somebody at work.
Okay.
Now, I might have the places mixed up, but yeah, I think that was the first time I did Wags. Actually, that's hilarious. Full PTSD. So I think it was like out west somewhere, maybe like Bankstown Centro shopping center, which still exists, and there was like this little. We used to do shows at the shopping centers, which would often be smaller stages. And I hadn't done a lot of like that kind of work, I guess, other than at 40 bills being in a skeleton costume or a gorilla costume before, which is pretty static. But I remember being in the show, and it would have been Dancing with Wags, I guess, or what that song's called?
We're Dancing with Wags the dog.
Yeah. And so the choreography, when you walked backwards like this, waving like that, and I walked back 4 steps and then legitimately fell right off the back of the stage, probably like 1.5 meters, just like down, and landed on my back. I didn't know what was going on. Like somebody had to come and grab me and get me up and back on the stage. Like luckily I was in that suit, because I probably would have really hurt myself, to be honest. But it was nice and padded. It didn't always Wags didn't always, I mean, he's a dog, but Wags didn't always smell the best. Let's put it that way.
Going into the times where you understudied for Anthony, you mentioned, and Greg as well. Can you tell us a bit about that? Like, do you have any memories of, like, specific memories of being an understudy for them?
You guys are setting me up for this one, surely. I remember filling in for one of the guys, and I believe that it might have been Anthony. So this might have been before we went over to Hong Kong, because I had to fill in for Anthony for Hong Kong, and so there was potentially one show that he missed here in Australia as well, or it might have just been a rehearsal for that. And I was super, like, just wanted to do a good job, and I was, obviously kind of like trying to learn everything kind of last minute, and we'd gone through the show and everything was cool, but then I felt sick the night before, like flu-y. And I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to sing, or my voice was a bit weird. So I did this thing, which my mom told me to do, which I don't know if it's a real thing now, but if you chop up a bunch of garlic and kind of just eat it pretty much raw, like it's supposed to kind of like stave off the cold. And I did this the night before. And then I was in the red car the next day, like going on stage, and as we were kind of going around, as we came off for that song, Greg leaned over and he goes, "You absolutely stink of garlic." And I was like, "Oh, I don't understand why." And he's like, "It's legit." Like he's like, "It's so strong." And he goes, "Did you just eat it?" And I went, "No, it was last night. It must be coming out of the pores." And he's like, "It stinks." So these poor guys, I'm like in this tiny little kind of car with them, and I think it might have been like, I'm not sure if it was the blow up one or the real one, which was actually mechanized. But I just remember Greg's face, like he was like, "You really stink, dude. Like you need to drink some water."
But for filling in for Greg, like, what was that process like? Because that just means you probably had to learn a lot of songs to fill in for.
Well, I kind of knew them all. So the original reason I was pulled onto the big show was for that role. Like I was a dancer, but it was more so that I was the understudy for Greg from memory. So like It was more so that I was there in case kind of anything kind of went down, or I don't really know what was going on in the background at the time. I don't know whether we were really aware of any health issues with Greg. I don't really recall that. But I know that was one of the main reasons I was kind of brought on for that tour. As well as being, like a dancer in the show, but I was known for being more in that host role by that time. Originally, when they brought me into the D show, they thought I was going to make a good Captain Feathersword, and I proved them wrong. I always thought that I was like, better in that kind of host role, but I ended up doing, I think it was like, I had to go at most of that stuff back then, but I landed more in that host side of things.
You touched on this a little before with the Andrew McCourt story, but You were one of the 4 Redcoat dancers chosen to be in the Wiggly Safari video. What
Uh-huh.
are some more memories you have from filming? And did you get to meet Steve Irwin?
Absolutely, we met Steve Irwin heaps of times, and I remember the main thing I remember about meeting Steve was thinking, wow, he's actually like that in real life. Like I thought it might have been a bit of a TV persona, like how up he was and how energetic and kind of he was just so lively, right? When you watch him on TV and all those interviews, he was just so peppy. But in real life, when the cameras were off, he was like that all the time, which I thought was kind of amazing. I was like, wow, like this guy's just 100% legit himself. And he was just so passionate about animal conservation and animals in general. And him and the boys like had a really good connection, and him and Anthony as well. Like they were just, because Anthony's a ball of energy as well. You know, Anthony's always go, go, go. He's always got new ideas. There's always something new happening. You know, he's got some new obsession that he's working on or something. So he's always keeping it moving. And him and Steve really got on like a house on fire from memory. And it was cool as well because we got to kind of see everything at Australia Zoo. I don't think I'd necessarily been there before. So we're obviously seeing like a huge croc there as well. And that's part of the video too, right? Is there something to do with the croc in the video?
Yeah.
There's the crocodile hunter, which is like
of course. There you go. The name. I've got there's another memory as well of it being, I mean, it was super hot in general. Like if that was filmed in January, did someone say it was filmed in January? Then it's the middle of summer in Australia and in Queensland, right? Was that where Australia Zoo is? It's up near Brisbane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or then it would have been so hot. It would have been like probably 40 degrees outside, like filming outside in the kind of 11 a.m. to midday sun. And as you guys can see, I'm very extremely white. So I really feel that sun, you know, it's like that Irish blood in there somewhere. But at some point, I remember there was like a place that we used to get dressed somewhere on site where we'd have lunch and stuff. And there was like a little, I don't want to say it's a fountain, but it was like a pondy kind of fountain thing. And at one point, I remember Patty just, you know, jumped in there on a break and started swimming around because it was so hot. And started, maybe they filmed some of that actually. Is that in the video?
Yeah,
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. There's a memory that I'd forgotten about. But yeah. Well, what song is that from?
Ooh, I'm not sure the introduction, but it was right after "Do the Owl," which was that
made it into the final video, did it? Wow.
There's this one instance. I mean, I don't know if it's this specific instance that you're talking about, but it's very similar in the video. It's probably in that area. Anthony and Patty are together making kookaburra sounds really loudly.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, they made him a wetsuit or something. What is that outfit?
That's a wetsuit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. There's definitely. Well, a bunch of us were watching this happen, so that was kind of right next to where everybody was getting changed and stuff from memory. Oh my God, he's got a full blown wetsuit. That's like peak costume realness. And Anthony got in as well. Yeah. So I had a memory of Anthony getting in, but I couldn't remember why.
Yeah, I think this was leading up to the what song was this? This was the Kookaburra song, right?
Yeah, Kookaburra Choir.
See, I loved. Was the Kookaburra one with the hats?
Yeah.
I love that one. That one was super cool because like we're in tight with the choreography or something.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. See, well, Wiggly Safari came out the year I was born, so like that's my video. That's my
wow.
That's my video.
Wow. Like actually the year you were born?
Yep, 2002.
That's crazy, dude. That is crazy.
Yeah.
But I've got super great memories of filming that and that whole period or era, I guess, because it was just, I was learning so much. And, you know, I say even now, like to people that I talk to, students of mine or, you know, artists that I work with in the studio, like I learned so much from working with the Wiggles. And there's things that they taught me, you know, back in right at the start of the DVD like workshop and the training that stuck with me even to now, just about how to hold an audience I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's like if you can learn to hold a audience of kids, you can hold any audience. Like because kids will just walk off on you if you're not interesting. You know, like they
Yeah.
will, and they did if you weren't keeping them entertained. You know, it was like if you're not interesting to look at and to listen to, they'll just legitimately walk off and start playing with the curtains at the side or do something different. So you better be entertaining or else.
Yeah.
When it came to like after the big show and Wiggly Safari, how much more touring did you do after that? Did you do any more shows with like the Wiggles, or was it all just like Dorothy the Dinosaur regional type stuff?
That period's a bit funny because I'd have to line it up in my head with what I was doing work-wise, but I got a job working at a theme park, Universal Studios here. What was it? Yeah, what was it called? Universal Studios? No, it was a version of that. Sorry, Fox Studios backlot. So there was a theme park here that I got a job at. They opened here. It's not open anymore, but there's footage of it somewhere online. And I was in kind of the original cast for that show. And then also we split the day doing street theater and half the day street theater and half day doing the show. And I was just swinging that show. So I had to learn like 7 different roles. And that was like a full-time job. So at some point along the lines there, I started working there for like, I think it was like 8 to 9 months. And then I left there and went to work on a cruise boat, in a show on a cruise boat for like 6 months as well. So I kind of just put off the radar. I think I came back and started doing some work for the Wiggles after that. Yeah, no, I did. So I came back and started doing some D shows and stuff, perhaps after all that. But I couldn't be totally sure. When did the D shows stop? When did they kind of do those into the 2000s?
Honestly, it probably stopped around 2009.
Wow.
Yes. But they brought it back. They brought it back again in 2016. That didn't
What?
go. Yeah, that didn't last super long. But they just did one again, a one-off, really early last year. I
Who
think.
did that?
I think it was. I don't know. I think Murray was there for some reason.
No, I think Simon was on stage for that
No,
show. It's really
I
strange.
think that Dorothy show is Anthony's like nephew Dom as Captain Feathersword singing everything,
Oh.
and they're just Dorothy. Like, I'm not sure who else was there. It was very small. It was like
That's
Yeah.
another banger from the Dorothy show. Ron Papa Chomp was always a banger.
oh yeah,
that was
that's a great
definitely
song.
the one like all the kids went crazy for.
I remember when I sent you the script, you completely had forgotten Baby Beluga, and you got really.
Oh yeah, see that
you-
was awesome. That whole baby, yeah, that was a great song. Yeah. But see that the funny thing, the memory that I've got of that song is that there were waves. I think I don't know if I've told you, but we had to
Yep.
become pirates or something for part of the show, or somebody did. Somebody had to. Anyway, there was like some switch that happened, and then there were these like long sheets of material
Yeah.
that we had to stand on either end of and go like this across
Yeah,
the
they
stage
used
to make
those in,
waves.
they
And
used
then-
those in the '97 Big Show.
Yeah.
They used, like,
they-
similar.
Oh, that was.
Yeah,
that was
A
pulled from
similar
an
wave.
earlier Big Show.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the Wiggle Puppets, were. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole other.
Would the Wiggle Puppets have been doing "Go Captain Feathersword Ahoy" by chance? Was that the song?
Not Go Captain Go. How does that one go? Come on, hit me.
It's
Are you
like,
gonna make me do this again? Okay. It's, no, why don't
All
we
I
just
rem-
pull? We can
All
just
I remember
pull
is
up the
doing a lot of
Wiggle
this.
Puppet. No, it's fair enough. It's like Captain Feathersword sailing on the ocean waves. Remember that one? Remember that?
Oh no! I think that was in the original edition. So
Oh,
that was
really?
like that brings back memories of Leanne Halloran and like having to like really. It was mostly the Captain songs that I think we auditioned for because it was like full choreography or something. Like it was pretty dancey as opposed to some of the other stuff which is just like this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
What's the song that everyone has to hold each other's hips and go like this? I remember that being a massive workout as well.
What song is that?
Where we just did this for the whole song. Like it was just a lot of like moving side to side. So you basically get to the end of the song and your obliques were just destroyed.
I'm trying to think of what that could be.
Yeah, I'm not.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was in the Big Show.
You said hold each other's hips.
No, it was like we were in a line. I don't know if we were necessarily
Oh,
holding each other's hips, but we were in
was
a
it-
line, maybe going like this or
Was it-
Here
something.
Come the Reindeer.
Was it Here Come the Reindeer?
Yeah.
That was
Potentially,
the-
it might have been part of the part of the medley, maybe.
And that one's not ringing a bell for me.
It's all good. It's in there somewhere.
I think it is
I'm-
Here Comes the Reindeer when they're
Yeah.
doing like the clear out the chimney part.
Clear out the chimney.
Ah,
clear
yeah,
out the
yeah, yeah,
chimney.
yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Probably
it's not-
dance.
But
Yeah.
you know, I always felt a bit sorry for poor old Henry, because I remember us realizing that we got told that Henry's like merch and stuff was the least favorite.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I had
maybe
always had a
that's
soft
why.
spot for Henry.
He- and Henry's my favorite. That's
Yeah, Henry was
Yeah.
always kind of like, you know,
Is that
pushed off
right?
to the side. Like in the big 2003 tour with the live band, I'm not sure if he even had like his own song. When all
Yeah.
the others got like, you know,
and
Wags the dog, we're dancing with Wags, but Henry didn't get one of those.
Yeah, but so for me, I always felt a bit sorry for Henry, because I thought Henry was like, you know, Henry had a lot of good songs for
Yeah.
me as
Yeah.
a like, he had a lot of the bangers, I thought. But I remember somebody telling us that the Henry merch and that just didn't sell, or people just weren't as interested.
That's their problem. Not Henry Rollins.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was like 2001, 2, and 3. Henry was just neglected from the big shows. He did not get a song in those.
Left
shows.
out entirely.
Left out. I mean, he was in the show. He
Oh,
didn't
right.
Get he didn't get a song though, which like.
Wow.
I mean, I
Oh
suppose.
yeah, that
in the-
rings a bell. Mm.
In the Christmas medley, they got the "Let's Have a Dance with Henry"
Oh,
part.
that's a
but
banger
it's
too.
like,
See, Henry's the
Yeah.
unsung hero.
he is the unsung
Yeah.
hero. Put some respect on Henry's name.
Put some
y'all.
respect
Like,
on Henry's name.
He's great. He's fantastic. Move your arms like Henry. Like, what more do you need?
Reem Hanwell, what's up?
That was the best friend of Henry
Yes,
for sure.
a good friend of Henry's.
Moving along to 2005 is when you appeared on Australian Idol. Is that correct? And
Correct.
you made it into the top 12.
Correct.
So what was that?
Only just by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
What was that whole experience like for you?
I was thinking about that again recently. Look, I would have never gone for that audition if it wasn't for my friend Roxy, who made it to the top 13 with me. So she dragged me along to the audition. I remember being on the balcony of one of my friends' flats, and she was like, "Oh, this is audition tomorrow. Like, can you come and wait in the line with me?" And I was like, "No, like I don't want to go." Like, I was already gigging at this stage with Roxy, and we've been singing together for quite some time. And she was like, "Please," and she kind of did that whole cute thing, and you know, I fell for it, and I said, "But yeah, well, I'm only going along at the very end of the day. Like, I'm not waiting in line from like 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, because it was still those days of when it was like an open call and there'd be like lines around the block, and I was like, I don't know if I can do that." And so we went almost before like there was like a cutoff point, so we kind of went together, and I remember I got some weird number, like, you know how you had to wear the numbers. I got some weird number that was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was something really kind of kismety. And I remember thinking, that's a really unusual number to get. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what the actual number was actually. And then we just kept getting through together. Like, there's a few different stages before. I don't know if it works the same in the States, but in Australia, there's you audition first for like a vocal coach. And then they put you through to the producer if they want you to, like a room of producers who are filming. And then if the producers have a chat to you and they get you to sing and they ask you some questions. And then if they like you, then you have to wear the same outfit and sing the same song 3 weeks later in front of the real like filmed judges at a different venue. So there's really like, 2 or 3 kind of things before you can see that original audition. But I remember I sang something, I think I went in with 2 songs for the vocal coach, and I sang I Want You Back by the Jackson 5. And then they were like, have you got something else? And it was Erin Clark actually, who was in there, who I kind of had some knowledge of, who was singing here in Australia. And then she was like, oh no, sing something different. We've heard that too many times today. And I sang like a Diesel song. I sang a bit of a Diesel song. And she goes, yeah, that one's good. Sing that one for them. So then you got to sing that same song. But it was funny. It was like this weird feeling, like I just kept getting through. I guess because I wasn't really like invested. it's weird in life. I feel like sometimes when you don't put too much pressure on things, they just keep happening. You know, like I wasn't like super like, I want this. I was just there with Roxy to kind of support her. And I guess it was probably that storyline of us auditioning together as well. And as soon as I kind of opened my mouth at the audition, was like sang, and then they asked me what I'd done, and I told them that I used to work with the Wiggles. It was almost like their producer eyes lit up. I could see it just must have fitted nicely for the building a story or character, I guess. But I was super naive and didn't realize at all. I was just telling them where I'd been from and what I'd done. But it was honestly just like a knock-on effect. Like I kept getting through. But that process was full on, especially when you're at the top 100. Like it's probably a lot better now because social media is so much bigger and people could just tell it like it is. But I remember us being there from like 6 a.m. on 3 hours sleep, with a room full of 100 people singing all at the same time, all super anxious, all singing different songs. And then we were getting fed like soup and like bread and water, and people wondering why everyone was cracking and kind of having mental breakdowns on camera. But yeah, nerve-wracking, really nerve-wracking, especially when you get to the tail end of things and you're like performing in front of people. Like that was super nerve-wracking doing live TV. That really kind of, I was like, it was the first time I think I've ever experienced being super proper anxiety, nervous.
We think you did well.
Oh man, I'm really glad my first one doesn't really exist on like the top 13 performance doesn't exist on the internet. I haven't watched it and I will probably never watch it. The top 100 one was the top. No, I'm pretty sure I wiped it from the internet. But
really?
No.
You did that?
No, I'm kidding. I'm not okay, that powerful. Okay. These are not the droids you're looking for. But the top 100 one is good. Like I like that one. Like that was probably one of those moments where I was really proud of the way I sang in the top 100, because we had to do it a cappella and in front of like the other 99 people that were through to the top 100. It was really nerve-wracking, and you're just in this auditorium and you got to pick the key right, and you're just really super nervous. And you know, Marsha Hines is there, and you know, I don't know, there's television cameras everywhere, and it's just crazy, and you're super tired and all that stuff.
Post Wiggles and post Australian Idol, what have been some of your creative endeavors since then?
Well, tying into Idol, I now work for Marsha Hines, who was a judge on Australian Idol back then. And I've been working for her for like 7 years as part of her band. I do choreography for the show, but I'm a long-term member of her show in general, touring, doing backing vocals. I've worked on, more recently we worked on a gospel project. So we did like a gospel show, which was super cool. It was awesome. And also recording a gospel project as well. I'm not sure if
wasn't it through that gospel tour? It's just tying like your era to this new era of the Wiggles. You got to meet Lost Benson, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because she was touring. She was touring with the live show that we did in the live band. Yeah. And I got talking to Loz as well about her time in the Wiggles, and that was really cool. Just talking to her about everything and how things have changed, if they've changed, and you know, sharing good stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from that, which I still do, I'll be going on tour with Marsha again later in the year through Australia. We've got a big tour coming up with her, which I'm doing the opening for. Actually, I'll be doing the opening act for Marsha with the other guy who does the show with me, which is Ronnie Jones. He actually runs the studio 301 around the corner from my studio here. What else? I've done a lot of writing and a lot of like sound system gigs. I like where I'm like a gun for hire, I guess. I've kind of dialed back on the gigs at the moment, but you know, I was usually doing 3 or 4 gigs a week. A lot of time with DJs these days, like less band gigs, where I don't know if you guys have this kind of thing in the States, but maybe it's more of an Australian thing, but you will have like a DJ playing instrumentals, and then the vocalist or whoever else is playing, like maybe a trumpet player or a sax player, will kind of do live mashups over the instrumentals on the fly, kind of just making it up. And it's a bit of a very specific thing. It might be a bit specific to Sydney / Australia. But they call it like a sound system band or like a DJ band. But I've kind of moved into that, away from like doing acoustic duos and band gigs, which I did for many years. Mainly because it's a bit more dynamic, like it changes every gig. You know, you can play the same instrumental but sing something totally different over it the very next day, and it's a different gig. But also lots of writing. Like I was going to sign to Ministry of Sound Publishing, maybe like I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, but I didn't. Just the deal wasn't the right deal at the time, money wise and terms wise. But I've done quite a lot of writing for and with DJs. I've gone to Tokyo and done some vocal production for J-pop. And there's a writing camp that used to happen here every year, pre-COVID, which was this bunch of writers from Japan who would come over and do like a J-pop, K-pop writing camp. I almost got a song placed with BTS, almost.
Really?
Yeah, just before they kind of went from being K-poppy to more Western. So just before that flip over they did to doing like English lyrics and just being a bit more kind of Western pop. There was a song that I did in one of those camps, and I was so excited because it was going to be for it was to do with some film project they were doing at the time. But I remember thinking I was so sure, and it got down to a short list. That I'll send it to you if you want to have a listen to it. But I still think it's a banger. I tell people all the time, like where I think I'm at my best with writing music and music production and vocal production is when somebody has kind of an idea that's kind of like at 70% maybe, and they can bring it to me and I can kind of look at it with new eyes or listen to it with new ears and kind of just go, here's what I hear. Whether you want to pick up on those things or whether you agree is a different matter. But you know, I think that's kind of when my brain like kicks into gear, especially with that, you know, as a vocal producer. Like I just hear, there's a certain level that I hear to that I guess some people may not tune into. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Nice.
All right, this is the last question we have.
All right, hit me.
Question. What's next for you? What do you have on the horizon, and what are you up to now?
What's next? I do a lot of teaching at the moment. Like I'm kind of have been building my business here. It's called the Vocal Booth, here in Alexandria in Sydney. But also I've got those tours coming up that I told you about. I've got a bunch of tours planned. It's a big one with Marsha coming up in, I think it's June.
Feel free to plug all the details. Just
okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm kind of building up my I may be doing a bunch of videos soon, like YouTube's for vocal coaching stuff. So we'll see if I can get it together for that. But I want to kind of open up my vocal coaching / vocal production to kind of the interwebs, and potentially coach people from outside of Australia as well. Because I really enjoy that, and I've always really enjoyed it. You know, I coached the voice winner in 2016, and I really enjoyed that process because, you know, Alfie was he'd never really sung before, and he came to me and we kind of like built his voice up and his kind of vocal vocabulary, I guess. And then he was like, you know, on the show and winning it within 2 years, which I thought was super rewarding. You know, just being able to help someone navigate that show and help them do the arrangements and what key to put things in, and, you know, perhaps what runs to do and what not to do as well, and how to navigate the producers and the behind the scenes stuff, which is hard if you haven't been through those things as well. So I really enjoy that side of things, and obviously I've learned a lot as well just from my journey of constantly learning how to sing and kind of get better in general, like just being a student of music and singing and writing and the arts in general. Like I'm always kind of learning stuff from my students as well as other people that I get put in situations with. Writing as well. Like I love being the worst writer in the room. I find that really interesting because, you know, I like throwing an idea out and somebody throwing something out and me being like, no, that's actually way better. Like, and I love that. I love that you thought of that. And I'm like, why did you think of that? Like, it's a great idea. I think that's when you learn the most too, you know, where you can just kind of be humble and be like, because I used to be quite staunch about my idea as being, I learned my lesson on some of these J-pop writing camps, because I would walk in thinking that like I've got it, like I've got the hook, like I've heard the chords being worked in the room, and I'm like I've got the melody, I've got the melody, like this is it. And you'd be writing with 4 or 5 other writers, and they'd be like, I like that, but what about if we did this? And I don't know about that for the pre-chorus, because it's too Western, which I thought was really interesting, coming from somebody who'd worked in both worlds. Like there's this girl that I worked with, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she would just slightly change things phrasing wise and be like, this is what works better in the K-pop world. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like it's different. Like I see why you've done that. And it was really cool learning things like that. What was the question? I've got off track, I feel like.
We're just asking what's next, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, what's
you.
next?
What's
Probably there's definitely that tour coming up. I'll be supporting Marsha with my mate Ron. We call ourselves Suit and Tie. So we'll be supporting Marsha for all those dates that she's doing coming up. I believe they're in June, but I might be wrong. And then also there's a big corporate event coming up in May, where I'll be ramping up my gigs again. So I've taken a bit of time off just from gigging so much over the last probably 6 months. And so I'm kind of ramping back up to going back into the gig world again, like 3 or 4 times a week. Maybe not that many. Let's say 2 or 3. Let's say that. So I'll be starting to book gigs again soon, including that big corporate gig up at the wine country up north. I can't remember who the client is, but I'm looking forward to it. Get to work with friends of mine again. It's all about working with people that I love and have fun with, and I get to have a sing as a result of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, this has been an absolutely wonderful chat. We want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We've been talking about this for a long time.
We have.
Yeah, it's great to finally have you on here. If you want to follow Chris, it's Luder Chris on Instagram. Is that an intentional pun? Because I love that.
My parents didn't mean it, but it's an intentional pun. Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
The full name's Christopher, but only my family calls me that one. So it's Ludacris, LUDERKRIS, which is ultimately confusing as well. But that's the handle on Insta.
There you go. Follow Chris. Thanks so much for joining us on the episode today, Chris. And
it was a pleasure, guys.
Yes, absolutely. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. We will see you on the next episode.
Whoop, whoop.
Testing.